Good afternoon, everyone. I am Durga Das, founder and CEO of Aeronero. I presented yesterday on what we do. We make water from air, from homes to large industries and communities. And it's very interesting that I get to talk to Professor Somnath Baidya, who's a professor, a PhD in environmental sciences, specialty atmospheric sciences from IIT Delhi. And he spent a number of years in the United States. And I'd like to ask you a little bit about that background, what you did there, and what brought you back to India.
Yeah, so just by way of introduction, but before that, I thank IVCA for having me here, clearly demonstrating a commitment to do new things. So that's something appreciated and acknowledged. I'm a professor of atmospheric sciences, the Rockefeller Foundation Climate Science Chair at IIT Delhi. And I'm also the Dean of Planning at IIT. But here, I'm here wearing a different hat. Basically, I believe that the private sector, weather and climate enterprise, can solve our problems and make money while doing so. And I was here in yesterday's some of the panels, and I saw that, and also if I look outside, there are so many young people, bright people interested in climate tech and huge amount of money that has already been invested, especially in renewables. But I think we are scratching the surface, and this is where my experience, 2 decades in the US comes in. Because I just, whenever I go to a meeting like this, I start with this number that the US weather forecasting industry is worth $10 billion. In India, the weather forecasting industry is probably you take that 10 billion, remove some zeros from the back, and that's what we are talking about. So that's why when I say almost like evangelizing to people, that we are scratching the surface when it comes to weather and climate technology. And because,
So the reason I brought that question up about your background in the US is, and we've heard a number of speakers on different panels talk about impact funds. And impact funds are not just about giving away free money to see if it makes a difference in people's lives. They also have to be sustainable, and therefore they need to make profit. And Aeronero, the company I run, we've been profitable the last 3 years. So there's no reason why a sustainable solution company cannot be profitable. But has that been your experience with the kind of startups that you are talking to or encouraging in the impact space, in sustainability? When you talk about the environment, are these ideas that have the ability to sustain, to mature, and to provide returns to investors? Or if not, obviously, they're not going to get funded, and therefore it will never take off, unlike the US. So what's your experience on that?
So I think when people come, working for a so-called green business, often you see that as a service, right? And so, there are people, kind-hearted, generous, and people who are, have the big picture in mind, coming in, fine. So, nobody thinks of the next step. Okay, you have a great idea, but what then? We just need to look outside get outside of our comfort zone and look at what is happening outside. I'll give you one example in the US. I threw that number out there, right? 10 billion for weather forecasting industry, enterprise. If you look at the largest, it's the weather company, which is worth, I think, $3.5 billion. Another, more or less mid-sized company, AccuWeather, which is worth close to $1 billion, $900+ million. So clearly, you can make money while being in this business. And the thing is that you really have to keep that in your head when you are getting started. Doing good is one thing, but that is not really going to make your solution, whatever problem you are trying to solve, profitable, unless you know that, and this is at the back of your mind, that you have to make a business that is sustainable, last for a long time, and bring in returns for you and your investors. I think that's the starting point.
Yeah, I agree with you. I I've always followed this saying that I read a long time ago, that great ideas need landing gears as well as wings. It's not enough to come up with cool ideas, but unless they have the ability to make money and serve the purpose at the same time, it really doesn't make sense. But can you suggest a few ideas that might pique the interest of some of the people sitting here?
No, I mean, I have a very, very long laundry list, not just a few. And this is because I'm going to pick from like, the $10 billion that is already floating in the US market. I'll give you examples, like, something very simple. You get up in the morning, you turn the TV on and it says, it's going to rain in the afternoon. So you pick up an umbrella. So right there, you are looking at a weather forecast and making a decision. Now, can we monetize this? Can we monetize the forecast or the information? And we already do. Like, so for example, like, if you are ordering food, right? And you see like, some sort of an extra charge on your app because it's raining. So right there, weather is being monetized. Now, it's not done very well in India for a number of reasons. I myself have like paid rain surcharge when the sky was completely clear. So that's one of the problems, like, why people think that this does not work. Some people think we are being overcharged. Some people are thinking that we are not getting paid. So just like, in terms of weather forecast, I'll start naming. You asked me for a list. So now the problem is in your code. So first, let us start with logistics. Like if you are a delivery company who wants to deliver products, especially perishables on time, weather is very valuable for you, not only to like meet your like deadlines, but also to optimize, okay? This becomes very important, especially when you are trying to make a cold chain. Like let's say if you are a high-end restaurant in Delhi and you are ordering your fish that is coming from Kerala, it's traveling like, thousands of kilometers. So obviously weather is going to be very important, especially in a country like India. So there are examples of like, let's say, managing your event. In the US, like, if you are organizing a barbecue, let's say in the summer, you look at the weather forecast. Is it going to rain? So should I have guests over on Friday night, Saturday night, or Sunday morning? So those kinds of decisions should be going in when we are organizing our IPL final, for example, right? And of course, like, energy systems management. Whether the sun is going to shine this afternoon, that should, like at least, like the load dispatch center, whether today I'm going to generate my energy from coal, be driven by that piece of information about solar energy coming in or the wind. So I could go on. And the thing is that very important to keep us this in mind, that we make decisions based on weather. Obviously, like, if you figure out a way to monetize it, there is a lot of profit that you can make.
So that's interesting because at Aeronero, we actually have sensors in our systems that measure temperature, humidity, air quality, water quality, water generated and dispensed and saved, therefore. You're saying now I can use that instead of just service mitigation, I can use it to make another line of business?
Absolutely. Actually, this is a very interesting example. Like, whenever I talk to, startups in India how do you monetize weather forecast? Most people say that we don't have data. That's the first thing that comes to people's mind. And sure, yeah, in the US, you can go point and click, you have a huge amount of data. The thing is that in India, the situation has changed significantly, so there is indeed a lot more data that is available for you. But however, we don't necessarily make our decisions based on some sensor put out by IMD or ISRO. Our decisions can come from a lot of different types of proxy information. You just have to figure out using AI what is a good proxy for, let's say, temperature or rainfall. There are a lot of IoT-based sensors all across everything that we do. Imagine every car. Like when you turn your AC on, it's optimizing your air conditioning based on external temperature. Your car is actually a moving sensor for temperature. So there's plenty of data. We just need smart people who can think beyond the box and figure out how to make sense out of this huge amount of data that is there.
So you've heard of the NAVIC system, I'm sure, right? Our own satellite system that India has. And the NAVIC is obviously being now developed with more and more satellites for us to get this kind of data. Obviously, we don't want to use GPS, which is not an Indian system, and it doesn't even have the band to cover the Indian continent. And you can see that when you see your map going in circles saying, looking for satellite. But the NAVIC system hasn't got downstream applications coming through as yet. And that's also because you need a number of reference points. So one of the things I was thinking is, with Aeronero, if I'm going to be in every home, every one of them could be a reference point, right, for the NAVIC system, and then therefore downstream applications can start happening. But obviously the NAVIC system can also give us a lot of this atmospheric data, right? Are there any other applications you think that can be built, the downstream applications that can be built using the NAVIC system?
Look, I mean, I think that every single piece of information that is out there that is being recorded can be digitized, quantified, and used in decision making. I'll give you a slightly different example. We all fly, right? I mean, I'm looking at the crowd here. These people are jet setters. Everybody is flying. And if you look back at your last flight or something, we've encountered something called clear air turbulence. The pilot will say, seat belt light has come on, right? So we are traveling at 12,000 feet, 15,000 feet high up in the troposphere, stratosphere. There's turbulence there. All our sensors are near the ground. And that is why it's very difficult for us to forecast turbulence that can happen, that a plane will encounter. Now, there is one company which is almost the monopoly on all sensors and other equipment in aircraft dashboards, right? And so this is a Japanese company that is in everybody's home also, in some other form, consumer electronic. So they are sitting on this treasure trove of data, 50, 60 years of data, tracking atmospheric conditions at upper level. And this company, I know, is working on a AI-based model that will forecast clear air turbulence. And it's already there, actually, right now. I mean, if you go on windy.com and you look at your menu, you will see something called clear air turbulence forecast. And where did it come from? It came from because people decided that I'm going to think beyond the box and see, if I can quantify information that is already there, just from the Aeronero sensors or the IoTs. For example, if you're programming your home, right, for the light to come out, up and down, that's actually a piece of information that people could use, and many people do it. So for example, very interesting studies on looking at crime based on weather. That actually scans the US, the police bulletins, to understand that what kind of weather conditions actually, now I don't or cannot think like a criminal, but obviously there are weather conditions that drive certain types of crime and deter other types of crime. So what I'm saying is that there is plenty of information in non-traditional form. However, one of the things that I have seen, when I myself have a small startup, which is, the challenges that we face, is when I go and talk to people that, look, there is this forecast and, it's worth money to you. I think one of the things that I get is people are used to getting things free from the government. So people expect weather forecast to be free. And because, or what IMD is giving them. IMD and the government cannot give you, they can give you weather forecast, but they cannot give you exactly what you need. So who is going to bridge that gap, that last mile connectivity between a forecast that is put out by IMD and actually the particular, the parameter that you need? So I think this is something we have to think of. Data is not a problem, but we need to think of how to take that data and build something useful that people will pay for it.
Tell me all about it. So even with water, they expect it to be free. So I faced that battle, when I was trying to promote Aeronero. But having said that, we are running out of time, so I'm just going to let it, ask the audience if anyone has any questions for you or for me, so that we can wrap up on time. And any questions, anyone? This must be the post-lunch effect. No one's mind is working. Are you sure? No one has any questions, so I'll have to ask you the last question then. So how many students do you have in IIT Delhi actually working on atmospheric sciences or environmental sciences that are actually working on an idea that will lead to a startup of some considerable value?
I think there are many students, with interesting ideas. We do hackathons and these kinds of things all the time. People come up with ideas. But actually taking that idea and then, first of all, jumping into that kind of uncertainty of a startup. And then also I need to think of people who actually have an idea of what it takes to go out in the real world and take their idea and build something that other people will pay for. The numbers are very, very small. So that's just the sad reality of it.
Thank you for your time, Professor. I think our time is up, and appreciate the conversation with.
Thank you, Durga.